Hi, welcome back to another Diablo 4 video. In this video, I'm going to be talking to you guys about my concerns for the launch and beyond of Diablo 4. We recently got to play the server slam, in which gave us a more accurate representation of what to expect when the launch and beyond of the game comes. And I just want to share my thoughts and concerns that I've had for at least a couple of months now about the game. So yeah, that's what we're going to do in this video here today. Just to be clear, for full transparency, I am not a player who's played the in-game of the game. And while I do love the game, I will give criticism as much as praise to Blizzard, depending on what they do, of course. So just want to be transparent with you guys. I'm not a shill or a hater, and I haven't played the in-game, but I will give fair criticism. So I'm not really sure where to start. But let's start with the thing that concerns me the most, and that is the discrepancy between the power of melee classes compared to ranged classes in the game. So first off, I've noticed since playing the Barbarian, I have over 150 hours, mostly in hardcore, playing Barbarian in the betas, in the server slam. And I've noticed generally I felt significantly weaker compared to the other classes that I tried whenever I play them. Now, keep in mind I have a lot more hours in the Barbarian, and I still feel a lot weaker than me with less investment in the other classes. And that could be me just not being good, or there's a core difference between how the classes play and function. Now, I want to bring your attention to some things that has been recent, and that is the buffs and the nerfs that come with the classes. So, the Druid, for example, in a lot of cases, especially in their summons, have gotten over 300% damage buffs on their skills. Their little trample ability also got 300% plus another node within it got another 100+% increase in their damage. The Barbarian had to get some nerfs, I will agree, but a lot of their skills did get buffs, like the Whirlwind. They had to get damage reduction added to their base, and so you know, there's been a lot of buffs for the melee classes. And then on the other end, you look at the range classes, and you see the necromancer getting his minions heavily nerfed. Corpse Explosion getting massive nerfs on damage, like 75% or higher, or something crazy like that. You see the Hydra getting massively nerfed. You see the Lightning get massively nerfed. And for me as a player who's playing melee and who have played a lot of melee games in the past, like Path of Exile, I start to get this PTSD of, is the development team good enough to be able to balance the melee to range balance? Because to me right now, I don't see a game or ARPG out right now, maybe Last Epoch, that has a good balance between range and melee classes. I don't see one, especially not the most popular, which is Path of Exile. I think they're horrible at it. That's my personal opinion. And so when I see that, it kind of worries me. But even more so, not just that, it's the philosophy behind that. Because to me, and I'm not a game developer, just to be full transparent, I've never developed the game. So I may be completely wrong, but I feel that it's strange to have a 300% damage buff on classes. To me, that seems like there's a massive miscalculation on someone's part to understand the balance of these classes. Like 30, fine, which is pretty big. Like in games, 30% damage buff can make or break a class, you know? But 300% gains, that's very scary to see. And that puts a lot of doubt in my head. Secondly, I have to know, because we are, at least when they were implemented, we were within a month of the launch of the game. Do you guys not have development teams that are looking at this and saying, or testers looking at this and saying, hey, look, our damage is so much lower than our ranged counterparts. Maybe there should be some changes. Or have you not played it yourself? Because for me, when I played it in the beta, the first beta, I immediately noticed the disparity, the resource consuming for melee classes, which is so, I was so hungry for resources constantly. As a druid, I was so hungry for resources, but when I was playing safe range classes, I was fine with resources for the most part, and I could use my skills. And to be quite frank with you, in this server slam, a lot of my abilities that I picked were for resource generation stuff. Not because, and I felt more forced to play these specific skills because I don't have fury to do anything else, you know? And then I have to take into account damage on top of just being able to like actually be able to play my skill compared to other classes. Like with my rogue, I never feel like don't have enough resources. I feel like I have too much in a lot of cases. So I think there's a massive disparity, and when you see bosses being redesigned around melee classes struggling to deal damage because enemies are standing in their own AoEs, which is kind of mind-blowing to me, to as a game studio that's been around for a long time, having melee that has lower damage uptime forced to fight into AoEs that deal damage. I don't know how that get to a month within launch of a change. Like, I feel like that should have been a change months ago, before like this beta test that we had, the previous beta test we had. That's just my thoughts. Now, to add to that, I did play the Server Slam not just to play the game or to record content. I did for all that stuff. That is true. But the reason why I played it, and probably a small portion of players played it, was to see how the class felt when we don't have all the legendaries. And for me, it felt as I expected it would be, which was terrible. And I don't like this design philosophy. I don't know why Blizzard went with this. I think it's terrible that classes should be built around legendaries to be effective. And this disparity is seen a lot more, in my opinion, in druids and barbarians than other classes. I do feel like I could be significantly more efficient with maybe one legendary on a rogue versus barbarian, where I feel like I would need multiple to solve a lot of the problems that the barbarian have. So again, I'm not a big fan of this design philosophy. I think it's really bad. And as a barbarian player main, I question why I would at least start as a barbarian or a race as a barbarian or anything compared to these other classes, when we have a class or a lot of classes designed around being good once they have these legendary aspects. Not a big fan of this design. I would love to hear some input from Blizzard why they felt this was the best way to do it. I can and will complete every bit of the content on hardcore and beyond, but just for a consistency or just from a general view, I do feel like I can do a lot of the things I do on my barbarian much better on other classes, and in my opinion, that feels really bad. Now, on to the next thing, and that is the philosophy of the game itself and the future of that philosophy. And I want to start off by saying, and getting this off my chest, I do not like Diablo 3. I think the game was really well made, but what I dislike about the game is the very on-the-rails experience that you get when you play that game. This is why I have 5,000 more hours in Path of Exile than I do in Diablo 3. And that's because in Path of Exile, you have significantly more diversity in what you can build. And in a lot of cases, your set items are not, here, take this deterministic stat, put this set of deterministic gear on and do really well without putting much creativity in it. And if you want to be creative, you'll be maybe marginally more powerful than the guy who is just using this set item that we gave you at the beginning of the season. I don't like that design. Maybe a lot of you do, but that's not for me. I will never like it. And with the coming of set items, not in this first season, I believe, but maybe later, beyond, I'm concerned that it will turn into that game where the team says, screw it, let's just give them a set item that feels powerful and let's stifle that creativity. I don't think that will happen, and that will be a concern for me because of Diablo 3. Now, on to my final concern about Diablo. I want to talk to you guys about creators. So this is going to be focused towards creators and changes in the game. Now, if you guys seen any of the interactions between the players and the community, we do see in a lot of cases that they shout out a handful of creators, and then they work with a handful of creators. And I know they do work with others, like they've sent me stuff. The Blizzard team's been pretty good. But you do see a handful of creators who really have a bigger part in the community. And that concerns me a little bit when it comes to changes that happen in the game. Now, recently I did see a few creators like Asmongold and Rhykker say something in regards to the necromancer being weaker, and what concerns me about this is I know, for example, Rhykker has a much closer ear to the development team than that of, other players. But for me, and this is not a flame to Rhykker, I think he's a great creator. He makes really good informal videos. But I don't look at Rhykker as a person that is, let me go find a build for Diablo. Let me go look at Rhykker for it. You know what I mean? Like, if this is a minion character, I'm looking at Gaza TV for that, If Gaza TV tells me, hey, maybe the necromancer needs a buff because I played this in hardcore for 20 hours a day, then I'll be like, okay, maybe that's more reasonable than Rhykker telling me that, because I don't really think I look at him as that player, or Asmon saying that, because I love Asmon. He's a great creator. I think he's funny and he brings a lot of value, but I don't like his builds or anything. Like, I don't look for him for his builds. And what concerns me is because some of these people, not Asmon, but some of these people have a closer ear to Blizzard, and so I don't want the changes to be made in the image of what I would call a more casual perspective of playing the class versus someone who can take the class to a higher level like Gazi TV and like really show you what the class can do, and then whenever like really good players actually play it and push the class and they balance it around what a not as good player said, it creates this like crazy meta of something being super broken because they took the advice of someone who didn't understand the class versus someone who really understood the class. Now, don't get me wrong, Rhykker could know the class like the back of his hand and be a god of war with it, but I don't think so. Anyway, the point of what I'm trying to say is I don't want the balance or changes within the Diablo team that they make be based around a small portion of creators who are popular, who have more ears in the community than people who actually have a lot of skill and time investment into the classes. So yeah, that's my concern for the launch of Diablo 4. It is a bit much to digest, and a lot of it is like balance related and creator related and like philosophy stuff, and I as a player really value a lot of the things I talked about in this video, especially having like good build diversity, having the ability to be creative, and then having balance be reasonable for the class that I enjoy and not just value towards the ranged players or skewed towards ranged players. So these things are very important to me, and probably a lot of other barbarian and melee classes and just players in general. So that's my perspective. I would like to hope that these things are addressed, or at least not as bad as they feel in the server slam and stuff. But that's going to be pretty much it in terms of what I think about the game. There's some small things like UI changes, making things a little bit more apparent, but those things I can get used to. But these are going to be my major concerns for the launch of Diablo 4. Let me know down in the comments what you think, if you agree, disagree. Am I just bad at the game and I just need to get good? What's your thoughts? And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video very soon. Later.